The Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, just look at it. It's one of the most incredible things humanity has ever built, a masterpiece of precision that's been standing for thousands of years. We all think we know the story, right? But what if the official explanation, what if that's the biggest mystery of all?
So, the story we all learn in school is pretty simple. It's a tomb, a giant, super extravagant final resting place for a pharaoh. And look, it's a neat and tidy explanation. But the more you dig into it, the more you realize it might be completely, totally wrong.
Because when you really start to look closely at the Great Pyramid and others like it, that whole tomb theory, it starts to fall apart. A lot of the key features of this place don't just, fail to support the idea of it being a tomb. They actively contradict it. They point to something way more complex and honestly way more functional. Okay, just think about other Egyptian tombs for a second, like the ones in the Valley of the Kings. They are packed with treasure, they're covered in these beautiful hieroglyphs that tell the life story of the person buried there, and, most importantly, they actually have mummies in them. The Great Pyramid? It has none of that. Zero. No mummy was ever found, no burial treasures, no inscriptions telling us who it was for, and the entrances weren't even permanently sealed. So you have to ask yourself, would a civilization really go to all this trouble for a tomb and then forget every single thing that actually makes it a tomb?
And we're not just talking about one pyramid. There are at least 118 known pyramids just in Egypt. The sheer amount of resources and manpower that went into this it's staggering. We're talking generations of labor, engineering so precise it still blows our minds today. And all of that, was it really just for housing the dead, or was there something else going on? A much more practical purpose.
And this is where things get really interesting, and we dive into this incredible alternative theory. What if we've been looking at the pyramids all wrong? What if they're not monuments to death, but were actually ancient power plants? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but stick with me because the evidence is surprisingly compelling. Now, before you just dismiss the idea of ancient electricity, let's take a look at this little thing. The Baghdad Battery. It was discovered back in 1934, and this 2,000-year-old artifact proves that the basic idea of generating an electric current was known way back in the ancient world. It's a really simple concept, but it's a powerful one.
And the way it works is honestly so simple. Modern experiments, you might have even seen them do this on Mythbusters. They've recreated these things using just fruit juice, and they successfully generated a few volts of electricity. Now, the point isn't that they were powering entire cities with these things, but it shows that the fundamental knowledge of electrochemistry, it might have existed way, way earlier than we give them credit for.
So with that in mind, let's go back to the Great Pyramid, but this time let's look at it through the eyes of an engineer. Let's stop seeing it as just a big pile of rocks and start analyzing its materials, its structure, as the components of a massive functional machine.
Let's start with the stuff they built it with. The outer casing, which is mostly gone now, was made of Tura limestone, which is a fantastic electrical insulator. Then the inner surfaces were coated in dolomite, which is a conductor. And the chambers and passages, they're lined with granite, which is packed with quartz crystals. And quartz is piezoelectric, which is just a fancy way of saying it generates an electric current when you put it under pressure. So, insulators, conductors, and generators, sound familiar? Those are the basic building blocks of any electrical system. And then there's the door. The Great Pyramid had these huge 20-ton stone doors that were so perfectly balanced you could apparently push them open from the inside with just a little bit of force. Now, why on earth would a sealed tomb need a functional, easy-to-open entrance? It makes absolutely no sense for a burial site, but it makes perfect sense if you need to get inside to maintain the machinery.
But the entrance isn't the only weird thing about the architecture. Deep in the Serapeum, which is this underground complex nearby, archaeologists found something that is just truly bizarre, and it adds a whole new layer to this mystery. They found 20 of these enormous granite boxes. Each one weighs 100 tons, and they are cut with a level of precision that is just mind-boggling. Their flatness is measured in fractions of an inch. These things were made from granite that was quarried 500 miles away, and they're too big to have fit through the tunnels, meaning they had to have been placed there during construction. So the official story is that they were sarcophagi for sacred bulls, but guess what? No bull mummies were ever found inside. The alternative theory? That they were energy capacitors, or batteries. And this is where it gets really cool. For a box to work as a capacitor, it has to be made of a single, flawless piece of granite to maintain a magnetic field.
Well, it turns out one of these boxes, found tossed aside in the Egyptian museum, is cracked. Is it useless for burial? Not really. But is it useless as a capacitor? Absolutely. It would interrupt the field completely. Oh, and the plot thickens. In 1993, a remote camera found a tiny, sealed room hidden deep inside the queen's chamber. And inside, there were two elaborate copper fittings. They look, for all the world, like electrical contacts or wires. Mainstream Egyptology says, they probably served no function. But from an electrical point of view, you literally can't have a circuit without conductors, like copper. Okay, so let's say the pyramid really does have all the components of a machine. We've got insulators, conductors, capacitors, wiring. There is one massive question left to answer. Where did the power come from? Well, the theory proposes this brilliant use of natural energy. Thousands of years ago, a channel of the Nile River flowed right underneath the pyramids. Water would have seeped up into the limestone base, through capillary action, creating incredible pressure on those granite chambers above. That pressure, combined with the natural vibrations of the earth itself, would activate that piezoelectric effect in the granite, generating a steady electric current that was then channeled all the way up to the top. Now, harnessing the Earth's own energy to transmit power without wires, it sounds pretty futuristic, right? But just over a century ago, one of the greatest minds in history was working on that exact same idea, Nikola Tesla. And the parallels are they're striking. Both the pyramid and Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower were designed to transmit wireless power. Both were trying to harness natural energy fields, and both relied on these tall structures to broadcast that energy. The theory even suggests the pyramid used obelisks, which were topped with quartz, another piezoelectric material, as receivers to pick up the power. It's just a stunning idea that a forgotten science, one we're only now starting to rediscover, was perfected thousands of years ago. Of course, mainstream Egyptology dismisses any idea of ancient high-tech. When they're confronted with really strange carvings, like the famous Dendera light, the official explanation is always that it's purely symbolic. In this case, it's a snake coming out of a lotus flower, and it represents some creation myth. But what if you don't look at it like an artist? What if you look at it like an engineer? What do you see then? Because it looks an awful lot like a giant glass bulb with a filament, the snake, running right down the middle. And that filament is connected by a wire to a box which looks just like a power source. I mean, every part of a modern light bulb seems to be right there, depicted with amazing clarity. So is it a myth, or is it a blueprint? When you take a step back, the list of mysteries that the simple tomb theory just can't explain it's a long one. The fact that there's no soot from torches suggests they had some other light source. The perfect astronomical and geographical alignments point to a purpose way bigger than a monument. And the underground tunnels and these weird thermal hotspots that satellites can see from space, they all hint at some kind of complex, active system. So in the end, yeah, the power plant theory might sound radical, but it offers potential answers to questions that the conventional tomb theory just ignores. The sheer weight of all these anomalies points to a structure that was designed for a sophisticated, functional purpose. And that leaves us with one final, absolutely massive question. If an ancient civilization really did have the technology for clean, free, wireless energy, that doesn't just change how we see the pyramids, it changes our entire understanding of human history. What else did they know? And maybe more importantly, where did all that knowledge go?